Central banks. They control the world's money, issue currencies, and stabilize economies. But here's something you may not know. Central banks around the world are buying gold at record levels. In fact, in the past decade, central banks have been adding more gold to their reserves than at any time in the last half-century. Why? If gold is just an ancient relic, why are the world's most powerful financial institutions hoarding it? In this video, we'll uncover the hidden truth, why central banks don't fully trust their own currencies, why gold remains their ultimate backup plan, and what this means for the future of money. To understand today, we need to look back. For most of modern history, gold was the backbone of central banking. Under the gold standard, every dollar or pound was backed by physical gold stored in vaults. This system created trust because paper money wasn't just paper, it represented real value. But in 1971, President Nixon ended the gold standard, severing the tie between the US dollar and gold. From that moment, currencies became fiat money, backed only by government promises, not precious metals. You might think gold became irrelevant after that, but the opposite happened. Central banks continued to hold gold as part of their reserves, treating it as a safety net when trust in paper money weakens. Why do central banks keep buying gold in the 21st century? The first reason is trust. Gold is the only financial asset with no counterparty risk. Bonds, stocks, and even currencies all depend on someone else's promise to pay. Gold does not. It simply exists outside of any government or institution. The second reason is independence. In a world dominated by the US dollar, many countries, especially China, Russia, and India, want to reduce their reliance on the dollar system. By holding more gold, they protect themselves from sanctions, currency manipulation, or geopolitical shocks. The third reason is stability. In times of crisis, wars, recessions, inflation, gold tends to rise in value. Central banks know this. Gold acts like insurance on their balance sheets, helping to stabilize reserves when everything else looks uncertain. The US dollar is still the world's reserve currency. About 60% of global trade and reserves are held in dollars. But there's a hidden truth. Countries are quietly diversifying away from the dollar. Why? Because the dollar's dominance also gives America power. It allows the US to print money at will, to borrow cheaply, and to impose sanctions by cutting nations off from the dollar-based system. This makes other countries nervous. That's why China has been building up massive gold reserves. That's why Russia turned to gold when sanctions hit. That's why emerging economies are quietly adding gold to their vaults. Gold, unlike the dollar, cannot be printed, frozen, or weaponized. It's neutral. It doesn't belong to any one nation. And that makes it the ultimate hedge against dollar dependency. Some may ask, why gold and not something modern like US Treasury bonds or even cryptocurrencies? Here's the reality. Treasury bonds are tied to US debt, which is at record highs. Central banks know that relying too much on US bonds creates risk. As for crypto, it's far too volatile, unregulated, and untested for central banks to trust. Gold, on the other hand, is proven. It's liquid, universally recognized, and has thousands of years of history as money. Central banks don't gamble, they protect. And when it comes to protection, gold has no rival. Let's look at the numbers. In 2022, central banks bought over 1,000 metric tons of gold, the highest in more than 50 years. Countries like Turkey, India, China, and Kazakhstan led the way. Even developed nations like Poland and Hungary added significant amounts to their reserves. These aren't small purchases. We're talking billions of dollars worth of gold quietly being shifted into central bank vaults. Clearly, these institutions see gold not as a relic, but as a strategic necessity. So what does this trend mean for the future of money? It means central banks are preparing for uncertainty. They see rising debt, global inflation, geopolitical conflict, and the possibility of dollar dominance weakening over time. Gold is their way of staying ready. It also means that ordinary investors should pay attention. If the institutions that print money are buying gold to protect themselves, shouldn't we? The hidden truth is simple. Central banks don't fully trust paper money, not even their own. That's why they keep buying gold. It's not about nostalgia. It's about survival, stability, and power. So now the question is, if central banks are hoarding gold, what should you be doing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to understand the real power of gold.